herzlich willkommen zu Wild at Heart, deinem Podcast für Manifestation und herzgeführtem Leben. Mein Name ist Kobi. Ich bin Life-Coach, Autorin, Speakerin, Online-Kongressveranstalterin und ich habe die Vision, Frauen zu ermutigen, ihr erfülltestes, freiestes Leben zu kreieren. Und zwar aus ihrer Seele heraus. In diesem Podcast mit meinen Gästen und mir geht es daher um sinnliches Alignment, Mutausbrüche, Göttinnen-Energy und die Kunst, radikal für deine Wahrheit zu gehen. Schön, dass du da bist.
You're such an ambitious and glorious woman living in Dubai. But I also know that there was a time last year that wasn't so brilliant, right?
Yeah. Totally, yeah.
And I'm so excited because I'm a self-leadership coach, and energetic mentoring and grounded expansion really is it's like my purpose. I live for it because I feel like us as ambitious women, we have so many aligned goals and we go and we want to do it, we make it. And, we're so happy when we hit 5 figures, 6 figures and all of that, and it's high, high, high. But then we forget, why we started or something inside of us. Yeah. So maybe you can take us back, because I know that you had, and also if you look today, I looked at your social media and your summer reels, all of them were so bright and so much smiling and yeah. So, but I think behind the scenes, it looked a little bit differently, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, I think it's one of those that, I think you're probably the same in terms of when bad things happen or things don't go to plan or whatever it is. I've always been the kind of person to just get my head stuck in with work and use that as a form of distraction, to maybe not face the things that I need to face. And I think that last year, when things started to kind of fall apart, obviously lost members of my family, all really close together, and obviously being apart from everyone that I knew and loved as well, I dived into the one thing that I knew that I guess I was in control of, which was work and my business, and tried to, I guess, distract myself in some way. But unfortunately, it all kind of piled up towards the end of the year, and there's some things that you can't suppress and you have to deal with, which is obviously why a couple of weeks ago I did a post after I hadn't uploaded anything onto my business account or anything like that, and I'd had to take a good month and a bit off because it all caught up with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you also said, I was just trying to keep up, I was trying to keep up. What were you trying to keep up with?
So the way I look at it is it's like a hamster wheel, especially with social media. So obviously my social media, my Instagram is my main source of marketing. It's how I bring in potential clients. It's how I help an audience. It's how I grow my community online and nurture that community. So for me, posting on Instagram is a key integral cog to my business. And I almost feel as if I was on this hamster wheel of, well, I have to keep it going, because if I take the time away from it that maybe I feel like I need to right now, I'm going to fall behind. I'm not going to be relevant anymore. I'm going to lose, the kind of buzz that I'd already built up surrounding my account. And there was this almost fear of, well, if I stop now, I'm going to go back a million steps, and I need to keep going. And it's something that I genuinely believe is one of probably the main problems when you are a business owner also running your own digital marketing. It's like this pressure to constantly show up, to constantly be saying something relevant, and you feel as though almost overstimulated, and like I say, you're on this hamster wheel and you're just going round and around and around and around and around, and you're blindsided from the fact that you're actually not moving anywhere because you're so panicked. You're just churning out as much as you can for fear of becoming irrelevant.
And that is what you felt for a couple months, or was it like what was the process? You just went and you didn't really notice, but you felt the pressure already? Or was it like at the end of the year, you had this aha moment and everything like fell apart? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it was the aha moment. It was that, oh gosh, like what has happened? It was the light bulb switching on. And, it was actually, I kind of just sat down and stripped everything back because everything was getting to me in a ridiculous sense of I was emotional all the time. I felt no motivation. My creativity, which has always been one of my strong points, it just was at an all-time low. I just felt grey and dull in terms of everything regarding my business. And I was genuinely at a point where I thought, like, I just don't want to do this anymore, which was crazy. And as soon as I thought, I was like, how have I gone from moving halfway across the world to pursue like this career, this dream that I have of like, continuing this business and growing it? How have I gone from that extreme to, not wanting to do it anymore? And it just was so not like me. And I had a lot of time, or I gave myself a lot of time to kind of just self-reflect and think on why I felt the way that I did. And the conclusion that I came to was that I had not given myself time to process things I needed to. I hadn't given myself, not even breaks concerning what had happened to me that year, but also just general breaks in time to switch off, as everybody should have and should be giving themselves that. As a business owner, I guess it's a lot more difficult to kind of ration your hours of work because you feel, again, like you're in charge of everything. You're in charge of your schedule. You're in charge of telling yourself when to get up, when to start work, when to finish work, and what to schedule in. So it's almost a lesson of self-control and just, I guess, monitoring yourself. And perhaps last year it showed me a lot that I hadn't got to that point yet, even though I thought that I was. And, it came probably towards the middle of November where I just thought, I don't even know what my why is anymore. And that's something that I spoke about on the post that initiated this conversation that we're having now. And I'd lost it. I didn't know what my why was anymore because I'd become so fixated on everybody else's why around me. I work with a lot of different people and entrepreneurs and business owners. And it's easy when you are so locked into what they want to achieve and what their dreams are and what their ambitions are. It's easy to get lost in that and forget your own. And I guess I willingly got lost in that because I'm trying to distract myself from everything else that was going on that year. And, having that break and having that time away, I was able then to think more on those things and put things and boundaries in place that ensure that won't happen again, because it's a really not a great place to be in, especially when at the end of the day you rely on yourself when you're a business owner. Like there's no one who you can kind of give the work to and say, like, right, I need this time. You sort that stuff out. I'm taking a month of just kind of relaxing and getting back in tune with myself. It's all up to you. So if you can avoid it happening, it's always kind of the best situation to be in.
Right. And I want to go back a little bit to that summer, because really, like, when I look at your reels and everything you posted, it was also like such a crazy amount of reels, like the quantity, and you're always like smiling. On this podcast, like, especially, I talk a lot about like authenticity and, showing your also your downs a little bit and being real, for your audience and to yourself. And like, did you feel like you were not able to open up, or did you generally just not see it, or how? Because I also feel like sometimes us as business owners, and, we're the face of the brand and everything. And it's this like, you don't want to show weaknesses, or I don't know how it was in your case, but maybe you can speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, actually, because I guess it is this really strange way that we go about things of like, when you go to work, you put a game face on no matter what's, I remember hearing that so many times, like in early jobs, even at school, like, whatever's going on at home, when you get into that classroom or that exam or whatever it is, you are there to do a job. And that is it. Yeah, exactly. And it almost kind of teaches you this robotic sense of like pushing things down, emotions, and just thinking, well, I have to get on with it. It's that stiff upper lip kind of thing. And I think, to be honest, like my family are also very much like that, not in a bad way or in a toxic way or anything like that, but just they all have kind of been the types of people that when they go to work or when they're with their friends or whatever it is, what they're suffering from or with or whatever, they kind of are like, right, well, that's that, and this is now. And I think in a way I took that attitude on of, okay, well, this might be happening in my private life and I might be grieving and feeling totally a mess emotionally. However, my work must go on. And you're right, it is that attitude of, I've kind of got to put on that game face for work. I did feel there was a post that I did, I think a couple of weeks after my dad passed away, where I said that I'd felt weird about posting the kinds of reels that I usually do, which are very kind of comedic, not taking myself too seriously and all of that. And I did a post where I said I felt weird about doing them, considering everything that I was feeling and everything that I and my family were going through. But then I also kind of put the process there and the thought process for me of, but also my dad was one of my, biggest advocates, and he had such a great sense of humor, and he used to love those reels, the funny ones. So I was like, also, I kind of want to carry them on because I want to do him proud, and I want to do it kind of almost honoring him in a way. So it was also about that for me. So I think, to be honest, it was a combination of lots of different things, kind of the pressure I was putting on myself to continue, the fact that I wanted to do my dad proud and carry on like that legacy of, my dad always loved the fact that I put humor into my work. And, even though it was something that, I've always kind of said it's good for us to be, as entrepreneurs, as honest as we can be and as upfront as we are comfortable with our audience, because at the end of the day, like, people, no matter how many followers you've got, people are always going to be looking up to you for some, in some way or another. And it's our responsibility almost collectively to make sure that people know not every day is super happy, not every day is super successful. We have bad days, bad months, bad weeks, whatever. But it's, kind of, I guess, that balance of making sure that we're showing both those good times and those bad, which is kind of the attitude I'm taking now as I come back into the regularity of posting. I'm really focusing a lot more on the mindset of entrepreneurs as much as I am the marketing side of things.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like, because it seemed like you were doing all of these things by yourself, I don't know if you had support or if you were seeking support. Can you speak on that a little bit? Yeah.
So, I mean, to be honest, it did, one of the biggest things that I can use to describe last year was lonely. And that's not through lack of people reaching out to me or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I'd moved to a different country to pursue an opportunity for my business.
To a crazy city, like to
a crazy place that, like, is so. It's not a place that I was totally familiar with. I'd been here obviously a couple of months before I moved, and I'd met a few people out here, but it wasn't a place that I was familiar with at all. So it's a completely alien land to pursue, what I wanted from my career, to pursue these opportunities that I knew were going to be a huge potential for my company. It was like 3 months in when I received the call from my parents telling me about my dad. Then I went home. Then my dad was telling me to come back. My dad was an ex-business owner, so he always kind of had this thing that he would say about, like, opportunities are there to pass, not to be paused. So you go and get it, you go and do it. I don't want you seeing me like this and being here. We talk on the phone. That is it. I want you to go. So then I was back here, and then I was back again. It was all that kind of toing and froing all the time. after he passed, my nana passed a month later, and it was just so constant. And I was here on my own. And regardless of the fact that, like, you know, I had lots of people reaching out, it's not the same when you're far away. A phone call is not the same as, you know, being physically there with your family and your friends. And as much as people who I'd met here were amazing as well, you've just met them. You're not going to unload all of this emotional kind of stuff to them, or you wouldn't want to anyway. So I think that in terms of, it wasn't that I was not supported, but it was just the fact that it was a very unique kind of situation. And I felt that although I had many people around, I couldn't really, I didn't really feel as if like I could fully communicate how I was feeling. And you can see how easily it would have been to kind of suppress stuff and try and deal with stuff yourself and like try and get on with it and think, oh, I should be able to do this. And that's also a very kind of thing that I've been trying to get over for a long time in terms of what I tell myself, like you should be able to do this, when actually it's okay to say, no, actually not right now, or I need to seek extra help for this, or whatever it is. So it was just a process of kind of figuring out, I guess, why I felt like alone, or why I felt like I couldn't reach out to people as much as maybe I wanted to. But I think that the circumstances were so unique. I can trace back and understand now why I didn't.
Yeah. You also said, and that is related to that, you know, stop working, start listening. That's like the end of your post. And I love that so much. Because when you say like you felt very lonely, and although there were so many people, and it seems like almost like an oxymoron, you know, it doesn't really fit together. You're lonely, but you have so many people, and, you know, you could have felt supported, but like, what did you do differently? You stopped working and then you started listening. What did that mean for you?
It meant a complete step back from everything that was distracting me from facing the thing I needed to face, I suppose. So I basically made a plan. I thought, well, I can't completely stop work. I have to carry on working because like we previously discussed, if you stop working, your company stops working. So I scheduled everything in I needed to schedule. I let my clients know that I'd be taking a couple of weeks away from the desk in terms of replying to emails and things like that. And I completely stopped posting on my own account. And I did a little post before I stopped, and just said like, look, I've not been consistent on here. I've not been showing up like I used to. I just want to let you know I will not be doing until the new year. I need to take some time for myself. So all of those boxes were ticked, in terms of I didn't have any kind of anxious feelings about the fact that, oh, people don't know where I am or anything like that. So all of those, I dotted my I's, crossed my T's. And then I took the time away. I spent time with loved ones. I started writing. Like I journaled some like thoughts. I've never really done journaling before, but I started writing things down. I remember thinking when I was doing it, I was like, I don't even know if I'm doing this right. I hear people talk about journaling all the time. I don't know whether I'm doing it right, but this is what I want to write down, so I'm going to write it. Before I realized that, of course, like it's kind of, I guess, what you make it, whatever you feel like. And I got out what I needed to get out, and that helped me almost listen more to myself. And every single day when I took that time to understand how I was feeling and what the problems were, it helped me feel a lot more like, I guess, that I wasn't as alone as I thought, because I was actually listening to myself. And I almost feel as if I'd been isolating my own mind and my own emotions because I hadn't been listening to myself, if that makes sense. So by doing this and just giving myself that time, by doing little things that make me happy just for being happy's sake, like I've always loved music. I kind of got back into doing some music over here in Dubai, and just things that made me happy. And that almost relit the fire of creativity and motivation within myself. So I think, again, it was a combination of lots of different things, and just almost tuning into those parts of me that make me me. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Inside Out. I'm not sure if you'll have ever seen it. It's a Disney Pixar movie. I won't explain the plot because it would take too much time, but basically it's all about what goes on inside this little girl's head. And
yes, with the different feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, and she shuts off she basically shuts off sadness within herself, and she doesn't ever feel sad. And eventually, because of that, as a consequence, lots of things kind of go wrong. And inside her mind, the things that make her, I think she's called Riley, the character, but that she has little islands inside her mind of like, oh, that's ice hockey, that's friends, that's family. And bit by bit, each of those islands breaks down and falls away. I love that as almost like a way for myself to understand, I guess, what happened in my own mind last year as a result of shutting off a certain emotion that I didn't want to deal with and I didn't want to face, and using something else to kind of push it down, so that it just resulted in this explosion of, I guess, emotion and just this complete breakdown of everything that was me and everything that made me me. So it almost was like December was almost like a rebuilding month for myself, and just kind of learning what makes me happy and what makes me tick, in the hope that that would kind of reactivate the why of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Did you find it again?
Oh yeah, I found it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a great feeling, like, and I feel as if I'm getting joy out of so much more with work again. And you know, it's little things like I was putting off replying to emails and discovery calls. So if I'd get an inquiry, I wouldn't want to reply to it, which for me was a huge alarm bell, because I was like, why do I not want to engage with somebody who's clearly interested in working with me? So for me, now the difference that I feel this year in comparison to last year is crazy. And I'm totally not naive to the fact that it very easily can creep up on you and happen again. But I think that when it does, something like that happens, I do think that it kind of alerts you a lot more to your trigger points, or the things that you need to be aware of in yourself that led down that path in the first place. So I think that I'm definitely glad that it happened when it did, so that now I can be more, I guess, alert and in tune to those parts of me that almost helped it along the way.
And I think it's also like such a beautiful journey when you say you have, I don't know if it was like maybe allowed your sadness a little bit more, or made peace with it, or I don't know what your choice of words would be, but like to actually rediscover yourself a little bit more in the process, no?
Yeah, 100%. And that's also something that when I look back on now actually gives me so much joy, because I'm like, it was such a pleasure to do that. And that makes me sound like really cocky and big-headed, but like, it is a pleasure to, and life is so chaotic and hectic, and when you're running a business or whatever you're doing really with your career, like, life gets on top of all of us at some point, and quite regularly as well, and we lose sight of so many different amazing parts of us because we're so constantly like going and churning out different things. Like, I've got to go pick up the kids, I've got to send this email, I've got to look after this like issue that's happening in my house, and blah blah blah, and we're just constantly moving. Like I said, it's that hamster wheel of like, I'm just going round in circles, ticking off things that I need to do, but I don't feel like I'm progressing anywhere or going anywhere, because I guess we put who we are almost on the shelf, and we kind of deprioritize the fact that, yeah, but also like this life is you and you are together for this entire however long you have on this earth, and you are a priority as much as all of these little things: career, family, friends, travels, whatever it is. and we forget, and we are not kind to ourselves at all. And I think that, when we kind of have that time, and I'm very privileged that I did have that time, and I did have that freedom to be able to say, I need to take a step back, and I need to rediscover my why, myself, like what's wrong. I want to kind of reflect. I'm so privileged that I had the time to do that, and I had the ability to do that, because a lot of people wouldn't have that. But I think, it doesn't have to necessarily be a month. Hopefully, you don't get to that point, because that is not a good place to be. But if we just give time to ourselves, I guess, every day, or, it doesn't have to be a long time. It just needs to be, 20 minutes of reflecting and thinking about like the day we've had and what we've done for ourselves that day, and what gave us joy that day, what made us happy or what didn't make us happy. And I think it's just this idea of knowing yourself better, and knowing what your triggers are, knowing what your weaknesses are, knowing what you want to work on, to make sure that you can live to your full potential and live to the happiest that you can be.
Right. Wow. Mic drop. Eh?
Yeah.
I want to talk boundaries a little bit more, because I feel as business owners, that is a very important topic, especially when we're people pleasers. And you also admitted that you are one, or you were one. And one thing that really brought actually like tears to my eyes was like when you said that you answered, oh my God, I get emotional again, but like you answered emails on the day of your dad's funeral, which is like, wow, and can you speak on that a little bit? Maybe not like the specific day, but like what that meant for you to realize that you need to set boundaries, and what have you changed since then?
Yeah, sure. So going back to the people pleasing, that is probably one of my most ongoing and worst faults, is that I just have something in me. I'm still working on it now, but thankfully now I'm actually giving myself the time to work on it, and I'm gradually, putting things in place to try and address it. But I've always been like that, as long as I can remember, getting pulled left and right to try and make sure that everyone around me is content and happy, and I'm not doing anything to upset anyone or annoy anyone. And it always makes me the one who's in the mess in the end of it, because obviously it's impossible to please everyone. And when my dad passed, there were a few incidents with clients where I felt like I was putting their needs before my own. And in my head, I was justifying that as, well, you're just a good business owner. You're just good at what you do, and they will appreciate that. And regardless of what's happened, like, you still have a job, you're still getting paid to do a job, like, you're doing the right thing here. And when I received that email, I instead of replying to it, instead of ignoring it, which I should have done, I responded, basically like assuring them that I would do what they had asked me to do as soon as possible. So it's not even the fact that I didn't only not ignore it. I didn't even send an email to say, like, actually, it's my dad's funeral. It was the furthest extreme it could be of, yes, of course, right away, I'll do it. And, at the time, this is the crazy part, at the time, I didn't even flinch with that. I didn't even in my head think like, this, I shouldn't have to be doing this or whatever. And when I thought back to it, I was like, what? How, even on that day, which is arguably probably one of the most difficult and hard days that any of us will have to face, in our life, I was still prioritizing, a client, and I guess a job, and how, they felt like I was doing over myself, and how I, was dealing with that day, and what I needed to put in place in order to make sure I grieved properly, which again ties into the whole problem last year, is that I hadn't. And when I thought back to that, as I was reflecting at the end of last year, I almost felt a little bit disgusted with myself. And I was like, what? Like, how on earth did that in your head make sense for you to do that? And how did you not feel completely outraged? And that shocked me so much, that I guess it was almost like, that those things that you see, I don't know what they're called, but when they bring people back to life and it's that thing on the heart and it's that shock through the body to kind of like resuscitate somebody. It almost felt like that. And I just kind of had this realization that until I get to the point where I don't feel like I have to do things like that in order to keep a smile on someone's face, or not even a smile on someone's face, but to just keep them contented and not annoyed at me, I am never gonna ever live my life to the full, because my priority is always going to be like ensuring other people are happy above like what I want. And not that, I'm not pushing it to the extreme. It's great to care about other people. It's great to be, a selfless person, like, of course. But it's also good to be selfish sometimes, and you have to be. And I think we have this weird idea. I guess it's to do, we can link it back to the way that we use language, but I think we have this strange false narrative that being selfish is this awful trait. But sometimes you have to be selfish to be selfless, because if you aren't looking after, when you're on a flight, they say to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on someone else, or before you help an elderly person or a child or whatever. And that really rings true so much for me in this way. It's like you have to look after yourself and sort yourself before you can help others. Otherwise, you're going to be in a mess, and you're not going to be able to help other people if you haven't helped yourself as well, if you're not at that point within yourself. And I think that was probably the tipping point for me when I thought about it like that. Because I don't think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people, especially people pleasers, just think, well, like I just want to make people happy. That's not such a bad thing. But it is in the long run, because you forget about the main thing, which is, the person you're living with, which is yourself forever. And you also deserve to be looked after. And the only person who can do that is yourself.
Yeah. So what would you say? What have you changed? You have spoken about the structures a little bit, and you started journaling, you have a few new routines, but also like energetically, what has changed since the month that you took off?
I've definitely, when we say about these boundaries, I've definitely put them in place a lot more. There's a couple of different situations with clients that I was having where I've been a lot more ballsy and strong in the way that I've expressed myself. Yeah, bit of a click and a sass here and there. And it felt good. Like, it felt really good. And I almost felt like I commanded more respect doing that than kind of just because the thing is that I was doing without realizing it is every time I let the boundary kind of like get a bit fainter, like, somebody else stands on it and it just becomes nothing. And before you know it, you have no boundaries, and people think that they can take what they want from you without you, I guess, putting up a fight. And I think for myself, like, there's certain things that I've put in place in terms of how I deal with clients and how I replying to emails, like I would do that round the clock all the time. And like, I've put specific times in now where, like, if you email me out of hours, I will not respond to you until, I'm back in. So I guess nothing has changed in terms of mass, like there's not this huge kind of epiphany of like, right, my entire life is completely different. I think if, someone was to look at the way that I am, like, from the outside, they might not see such a huge difference. The changes and alterations that I've made are so minute, but they are so effective. And I think that's the key, I suppose. It's not these huge changes that you need to make. It's just little things. And the more that you understand yourself and kind of what takes you into that dark place or what makes you feel bad, you won't understand what those small changes are until you do that. That's probably the biggest thing. The biggest thing is finding what you need to change and finding what it is that is upsetting the balance in your life. I think the changes themselves are always, I think, quite small. But like I said, like the effect and the knock on kind of result is so mind blowing to your own life and the way that you feel day to day. And like for me, the changes that I've made, mostly to do with boundaries and just setting my schedules. A bit of organization too has definitely been in there. I don't think I'm a disorganized person, but I think I got disorganized with everything that had happened last year. I felt like everything was very chaotic. So just giving myself like a bit of a routine has definitely changed things for me as well.
Yeah. For me, it's also, I mean, I haven't been in that place, but for me, it's also to just allow other people to do things for me, like outsourcing or like bringing more people on board, like team members and stuff. So I don't know how it is with you, but it also seems like you take care of a lot of things yourself, and like I'm the same. And that's also like, for me, that is part of like, staying in control, and we all have our shadows, but yeah, so that's definitely also like one point. As we're wrapping up this conversation, I want to ask you if you change the perspective, and for the women that actually listen to that conversation right now and they are ambitious and, they hit their aligned goals in 2024, the year has just started, and to be able to really take great care of themselves, like what kind of questions would you recommend to like ask
for them to ask themselves?
Yeah.
I think a big one is like, firstly is like, number one, like do I feel like, not about, somebody said to me about like, do you feel happy? And like, I'm not happy every single minute of every single like day, but I am right now, like from this year, I felt happy every day. And if somebody had asked me that last year, like I think I would have not been able to answer it. I would have been like, no, like I don't know what I'm doing day to day. Like I feel it's like that thing of like, I guess it would be like these questions of like, do you feel happy, at least one point every day? Like, is there something that's bringing you happiness? Like when you think about like your mind, like I always think of it like, if your mind was just colors, like what colors would your mind be? How do you feel about like, and again, last year I would have answered gray, just gray. It's just gray. It's just dull. It's grainy. It's not vibrant and dynamic colors. Like, whereas now I'd be like, it's the whole technicolor rainbow.
Well, and glitter.
Yeah, exactly. I would ask yourself, what are you doing for yourself every day? And yes, okay, you're working for yourself every day. Yes, that's amazing. Like you're working towards your goals. You're ambitious. So of course that you feel that is for you. But what are you doing that brings you joy for joy's sake? It's going back to what I said earlier. And that's something that I definitely had lost, and I wasn't doing anything anymore that just made me happy for the sake of being happy. And those things we underestimate often because we think, well, yeah, but it's not getting me anywhere. It's not helping me, move forward in my life. It's not benefiting me in any way. But like, just because you can't see the benefits doesn't mean that the benefits aren't there. And, for me, like, I've joined a choir in Dubai because I love singing. I know that I'm not going to be a famous singer or anything like that. And it's not helping me, kind of like perpetuating me forward, like towards any kind of like career goals, but the effects that it's having on me once a week, singing with other people in a choir and hearing that sound and being able to use my voice is astounding. And it makes me feel like I have a new kind of like burst of life every Tuesday evening. So I think that's another big one to say, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing that brings you joy for joy's sake? And then on top of that, like, I guess the final question I would ask is like, is there anything that you feel that you're doing that you don't want to be doing? And sometimes asking almost the negative question can help, because if somebody had asked me that last year, I would have had a very long list of things that I was not happy with that I was doing, that I didn't want to be doing. And I think like it almost gives you, when you can see it visibly on paper, it helped me to write things down. And when you can see it visibly on the paper, you can kind of, I guess, take a bit more control of it and think, okay, right, well, that's not making me happy. How do I get rid of it? Because the more things that I can get rid of that are causing me distress or sadness or whatever, the more I can get rid of, the more myself that I will feel. So I think a combination of those different questions hopefully would get somebody somewhere in terms of reflecting a little better on maybe what they need to change or what could be the problem that's not making them feel good.
Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Happy. Yeah, that you put your oxygen mask on now. And also like, just thank you so much for like being so transparent, and like
no, totally
honest with like your own like reflection, because I mean, I think for some people it's, it has to do with shame also to look at these parts, so.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I felt a lot of that last year, in terms of like, I think it's self-reflection is so hard. Like it's such a brave thing to do. And again, that's one thing I wouldn't have said last year. I would never have given myself like a compliment like that last year and been like, that was a brave thing to do. But no, like now I'm like, no, it was like, it's not easy to do it. And it's so important because, it sorts you out in the end. It's a process. And like, I definitely know that I'm still working towards different like new things. Now I'm in a better place. Like there's more things that I obviously want to work on, but like what we were talking about there, like if you can reflect and identify those things, then you put the wheels in motion. So no, it's really nice. It's actually quite therapeutic to talk about it as well. I feel like I've just had like a 40-minute therapy session, so that's really good.